Reaching out for help was the worst thing I've ever done to myself. I got a doctor in Ontario, Canada, in a big city, in a nice, fancy hospital. I chose to go there voluntarily. I had a full-time job. My benefits covered going into the hospital, so I did. I had childhood trauma to deal with. I was 23 years old, living on my own for the first time. A lot of different stress in my life, and my childhood was rearing its ugly head. And so I sought help. Because I used to take 3 buses to work. I had a car at the time I went to the hospital, but years before that I would take 3 buses, one way to work, 3 buses home. And all you ever saw everywhere was reach out for help and mental health this and mental health that. So I reached out. I found out because I had benefits that I could take time off for mental health reasons. And I chose to go into a hospital setting voluntarily on my own. I can come and go as I please and get help, get rest and get help. At this point, I was exhausted all the time. I wasn't sleeping. If I was, it was nightmares. I was having flashbacks. I passed a children's playground on the way to and from work, and I would just see things being played out. I was stressed. I was really stressed. I found out that I could take time off work, not lose my job while I'm dealing with this, and that was great because I loved the job that I had. So I reached out for help, and I was staying in hospital. The doctor's office was in the hospital. And after the first few days, he began to fall asleep on me every day. My first time getting everything out that I've been through in my childhood. I have a few separate assaults. And I look up and he's fast asleep. Fast asleep. I woke him up and he made a joke about heavy lunches. And, you know, I'm 23 years old. Just a 23-year-old girl. I feel at that point like I'm 5 years old because of what I'm in there dealing with. You know, he's a man. He's a grown man. He's a grown man who's a doctor. So when he laughed it off, I laughed it off too. I can understand anything happening once. But he kept doing it. He could have postponed every appointment if he needed to. But he would bring me into my appointments, and then when I would try to deal with my past, he'd fall asleep. Fall asleep. And when I woke him up, some days I was sad, some days I was angry with him. And I would ask him why, what's the problem, what's going on in your life that you keep doing this to me? Nothing. He would just stare at me in absolute silence. I wasn't worth staying awake for. I wasn't worth giving an explanation to. Nothing. After 2 weeks of this, I was numb. I didn't see anything getting better. I was numb. I reacted. I cut my wrist while I was in hospital, and that shows that I wasn't thinking. If I wanted to hurt myself, I could have left and gone home where I'd be alone and done something, but I wasn't thinking straight. I was just thinking, whatever happens, happens. I hadn't have reacted after 2 weeks of him falling asleep on me, he would have kept doing it. Do you understand that? He would have kept doing it. And I know you're sitting there, you feel fine, you don't understand why it's such a big deal. I was exhausted, okay? I didn't know where to turn to. As far as I knew, a doctor is basically his own boss. I didn't know where to go, and I was too fucking tired to go there. And once I reacted, the hospital staff turned on me. Once I reacted, I was no longer a voluntary patient. I was now locked in this place with staff who were like an angry mob. They were an angry, vindictive group of adults who were constantly poking at me, trying to get me to blow up. Constantly. It was day after day after day. I would avoid them. I would stay in my room the most that I could. It was... I've never seen adults behave this way. I can't put into words, but it was crazy. And it ended with them refusing me medication one day, as needed medication, you know. I never took it in the beginning because I don't care to take medications. But when you're trapped with people who are constantly harassing you, I started taking it because I was scared of these people, of the staff. I was scared of them, and I was locked in this place. And eventually I went to ask for the medicine. They said no. I said, are you allowed to refuse me medication? And they got loud and said my name, and it brought other staff out. The one male nurse. And he said, get away from the counter, get away from the counter. I'm trying to explain to him that they're refusing me a medication that I'm told that I'm supposed to ask for when needed. And all he keeps saying is, get away from the counter, get away from the counter. And I'm like 2 feet away from the counter because I've even backed up to turn to him and talk to him. And it don't matter. And I'm a smart ass. I'm a smart ass mixed with I truthfully didn't think that they could restrain you for doing this, but it was a higher counter, and so I held on to it. I went and grabbed the counter. I did not threaten to jump it or nothing. And the fact that when I got a copy of my records years later, during the complaint process, I got a copy of my records, and they don't have any of this written in it. They've put down that I've just gone like rogue ninja, and after a month of being in hospital, suddenly I'm so violent, I'm attacking everybody, and they just had to restrain me. That's for years, I thought that they put something like, we refused her meds because she's, whatever reason they have for refusing you meds, and that I grabbed the counter and tried jumping over it or something, which I didn't. It didn't even look like that. I'm looking over at him with a look that says, okay, I grabbed the counter. You can't help it. Like, they're being so ridiculous. You're trying to explain something and they keep saying, get away from the counter, get away from the counter. So you go and you grab the counter and you look at them like, what? I grabbed the counter. What? But that was go time. That was all he needed. He came at me, started bending my fingers back, so I pulled my arms away back to my body, and he followed them in and started attacking me. Next thing you know, there's tons of staff there. I think they were having a meeting about me in a back room because suddenly there were tons of staff there. They all dragged me to a room. There were 2 security guards my age at the foot of the bed. They were leaning against the wall. This was in a big hospital in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. So if you're a red-headed security guard or a brown-haired security guard that in 2004 saw a girl who was being attacked by staff, who wasn't fighting back, who wasn't being violent in any way, That was me. And when they ripped my pants, I was wearing lounge pants. And to give you the shot, what I've been told is that you can get the shot through lounge pants. They know I'm in there for childhood sexual assault. They threw me on my stomach. They ripped my pants down. They ripped my underwear down to give me this shot. And everything just, it stopped me dead. I still remember that moment like it just happened. It just freezes everything in me. And because they administered the shot, everything went black. When I woke up, I was drugged, still restrained, and I was in the room with the male nurse. The only male nurse on staff is alone with me while I'm drugged and restrained. That's all I could think about, and then I blacked out again. And when I came to, I was untied. That was in 2004. I was out of the hospital shortly after that. I was mad. I was yelling at my doctor that I'm going to go sit in front of the hospital and tell everybody what they've done. I kept saying this, and next thing you know, they're releasing me on my own recognizance. And me, I try to hit the ground running all the time, so I go back to work. Within 2 months, I have attempted and failed what the doctors labeled a serious attempt. I don't know if I can say the word on this media platform, but after that, it was goodbye independence. I had to pack up, move back home with mom and dad. I'm now 42 years old. I've been with my parents ever since. I have not been well enough, long enough to ever get back out on my own again. I didn't need a cure. I just needed a warm, soft place to fall. This doctor could not be more clear that I didn't matter. If nothing matters, then nothing matters, right? I have fought this ever since. I have written, contacted lawyers, news media agencies. I've contacted multiple ministers of health. I've contacted governing bodies. When you go through the complaint process and you say, this doctor did this to me over and over and over and over again, and what does he get? He gets told not to do it again. That's it. Forget that he brought me in day after day after day and did it to me. Forget that he started a snowball rolling that made me react and then made staff react to me reacting, and it absolutely traumatized me. I was in there dealing with exhaustion, dealing with nightmares, and dealing with flashbacks. So while in the midst of trauma, they traumatized me again. One of my assaults involved restraints. I can't tell you the damage they've done, but I'm going to try. I'll keep this short because I know long videos you don't want to see. So in my next video, I'll tell you some of the things that I deal with because of the symptoms that I have now because of them. So thank you to the doctor who couldn't find the worth in me to just not do that. All you had to do was stay awake. You just stared at me in silence. I cried to you. I asked you if, God forbid, if your daughters were ever assaulted, is this the help that you'd want them to get? And you just stared at me. You just stared at me. Day after day after day.